Oh,
minimal effect.
Absolutely minimal. And that's why I think it's so brilliant. It's that pinpoint targeting.
Right. So that they've been able to hit exactly who they wanted to hit. And like I said, if they didn't know somebody was a member of the network, now they have a pretty good reason to understand, yeah, that person's probably a member of the network because they got the phone distributed to from the same source that the rest of them did.
Yeah, but Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, they're not secretive. And when you're in Jordan, when you're in Lebanon, when you're in Gaza, and in Yemen, they're really not secretive about who
those
they
pagers,
are.
it could have been real easy to set those pagers up. Because you can, depending on the type of pager. First off, let's introduce ourselves, and then we'll go into this a little bit more.
Allow me to hit my button that says we're on air.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the Weekly Roundtable. I'm Mike Marshall, one of the co-founders of the Liberty First Foundation. Directly to my right, you will see Michael Vasquez. And at the bottom of the screen, you will see Frank Range Report Johnson, the inventor of Twinkies, and the other co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation. Welcome, everybody. Here we're going to discuss much of the week's happenings. You kind of caught us as we were discussing what took place over the weekend with Hamas and so forth. And I was just going to get into that. But Michael, why don't you give us a little background on that first?
Well, essentially, it seems that as we found out yesterday, Israel has been long-term, most likely the Mossad, have been long-term intercepting and inserting explosives into pagers and into walkie-talkies. These are alternative means of communication used in large part by Hamas and Hezbollah, and probably the Houthis as well. And yesterday, they activated that device, that remote code for the bomb, and exploded 5,000 pagers throughout Lebanon and also in the West Bank region in Israel itself. This is probably the most pinpoint bombing attack that has ever happened in the history of mankind. It has had the least collateral damage of any bombing attack in the history of mankind. This was target specific. And I know a lot of the left are losing their minds because it was specific and targeted and effective. And as we were just speaking with Frank, and you were about to mention something, Mike, we're talking about what was the purpose of this by Israel, because they then followed it up today by activating similar explosives in walkie-talkies, or otherwise known as handheld radio devices. But now some of the international would report it as a handheld radio. That's a walkie-talkie. And they activated those as well. And I think my position is they did that primarily for, one, kill the communications among the terrorist organizations so that they don't trust on speaking to each other through these alternate communication devices, maybe even afraid to use their cell phones because they could also have these explosive devices. And the secondary thing is the actual injury or death of members of these terrorist organizations. And Frank, of course, was saying as we started up, he's saying it's more the attack than it is the communications, if I'm understanding Frank's position. You were going to say something, Mike.
Well, I was just saying,
actually, pagers are a great means of doing this. Depending on the type of pager that was used, most of them allow to have multiple codes to cause them to go off. So essentially, they could be laying in wait, receiving all their normal pages that they would normally get without any issues going off. And then all of a sudden, um, as Israel can send out their own code on that frequency that would actually activate the pagers to cause them to go off. And unless you are programming your own pagers, you would never know what was in there. It could also be written into the operating system of the pager, the firmware, so that it was hard coded in there, so that when it received a certain code, it would cause it to go off. So depending on how the pagers were designed and so forth, it would not be a difficult thing to set up. And so I think it was a genius way of doing it. The same holds true for radios. You were talking about that they had radios that were also exploding.
Same principle. It's the same principle
Mhm.
of rigging the explosive device to be set off by a specific signal, RF signal or hard coded in, doesn't matter.
Well, there's a not only an RF signal. Okay, what can also be done, okay, is a lot of radios allow for what's called, okay, pagers are mostly set off by what's called a two-tone code. Radios, a lot of radios have that capability of being able to notify a user when a certain two-tone code comes across. So having that hard coded in would not be that difficult to do. Where
Oh no, I
that
absolutely don't think it's
a
difficult.
specific two-tone code set off a device within the radio.
I don't think it's about the difficulty. I think the genius is that it's simple. It's
Mhm.
very simple, very targeted, very specific, and its goals are specific. But Frank, you were going to say something.
Well, this thing just serves so many purposes. This
Mhm.
attack, not the greatest purpose. I mean, yeah, aside from eliminating specific targets. Now, listen, there's no way for them to really know if you're going to set off 5,000 of these things at one time. There's no way to know what kind of damage each individual one of these things is going to. It's not like you can say, okay, well, we have 3 leaders that we're trying to get, and we're going to set off 5,000. There's no way for them to know they're going to actually get the 3 that they want. I mean, they're going to injure them, but everyone's saying, oh, well, they target. It's easy to target the specific leaders. Well, you don't know if the guy had the pager next, in his breast pocket, pants pocket, his back pocket, if it's in his satchel, it's in the glove box. You don't know where the pager is when the signal went off. So it's by happenstance that certain leaders may have, met their demise. But the greater effect, I believe, is the chilling effect, because now these people there, you set off their pager, all right? This is their main form of communication that they've been using, because I don't know if, Michael, would you say that the majority of pager signals now were analog, or are they digital?
Analog.
Paging is majority analog right now.
All right. So you have an analog system that they go after. That's an antiquated system. All right. Especially, when you compare it to the digital devices of today. So what do? They're pedaling backwards to older and older and older technologies to try and figure out what's going to be their best form of communication. Because you just took out their number one communication. Now they can't trust that. They're not going to trust their cell phones at all. You can say, well, if they could do that with pagers, imagine what they could do with cell phones. So what do? They go target their walkie-talkies. And the next thing you know, they're going to be, afraid to pick up a pen and paper, to pass a message down to some courier somewhere. So just the fact that they've been able to hit the communications and make it so frightening for anybody to say, well, how are we going to communicate now? You've put them back into the Stone Age, because now they have to rely on foot traffic. They have to rely on couriers. And And now they're gonna say, well, which of our couriers can we trust? Who in our network hasn't been compromised? Who in our network hasn't been being followed or traced or tagged with drone technology, satellite technology? They know where everybody is at any moment in time. Now they're not going to even be able to. So now you're going to have an even more dwindled down network of communication. And think of how easy that's going to be to trace.
Well,
And to follow along.
I don't know that it would be easy, but it's meant to make it more complicated, and it's meant to reduce the amount of communication and reduce the amount of coordination, because Hezbollah has been amping up its attacks against Israel. They've been firing more and more rockets, recently firing several hundred. Matter of fact, they were preparing to fire 6,000 missiles and rockets all at once simultaneously to try and overwhelm the Iron Dome. And that was defeated, which has brought us into this most recent round of fighting between Hezbollah and Israel. But it's also chilling to now the Houthis have to be afraid and Hamas have to be afraid. Now they have to go through all their communication systems. They have to re-verify who are their messengers, their foot messengers, and their their means of communication. So it's meant to slow them down. It's meant to hinder their ability to continue to attack and fight. It's meant to give each and every one of those members a pause on whether or not they wish to continue to fight. And hopefully, and based on what's being said, it's Israel's hope that this will give them a means and a reason, Hezbollah specifically, to go into a ceasefire mode, to stop their fighting, and to, if not completely go into a peacetime, at least into a ceasefire mode. And I think it's been very effective at that. I think this is brilliant.
Well, what's the old phrase I'm sure you guys recognize? You can run and you can hide, but you're only going to die tired. Now that they've been able to tell these people, listen, we might not have known every single one of you, but every single person that comes walking into a hospital or looking for medical treatment in the next day or two, now we got a pretty good idea who you are. Because if this thing was, like I said, if these beepers were disseminated and these radios were disseminated to members of these organizations, then anybody who got blown up, that's pretty good odds that they're one of the bad guys. So if someone comes walking into a hospital with two fingers on a hand, you can say, okay, all right, maybe we didn't recognize, maybe we didn't know this guy, but now we do.
I don't think that's really a factor. It's too many people and too.
It's intelligence. It's intelligence. Any information you can glean is valuable information.
Can be, but not always. Not all information is valuable or actionable.
Well, why would somebody who's not a part of that network have one of their beepers? Will have one of their radios?
Someone borrowed it. Someone used it. Because it's just regular every day. They stole it. A lot of reasons.
This is stuff for a terror. This is stuff for a terror network. This is not. It's not like, hey, can I borrow your drill? Hey, can I borrow a hammer? This is one of their main communication networks. They're not going to be lending that out. This thing's going to be on their person 24 hours a day, waiting for the call for jihad.
That was
so
the hope of it, but while that's the hope of it, that's not the real world and how things tend to work. People make stupid decisions, and people use assets that are dedicated to other reasons. But my point isn't even that, though. There's 5,000 individuals, almost all of them are foot soldiers. It's not worth trying to track down those 10,000 people who may have been injured, or 7,000. More like 7,000. It's more important.
How many of the people that attacked in October in Israel? How many do you think that Israel knew firsthand were terrorists? You don't think that there were a bunch that they didn't know were in the network?
Of course, there were some.
All right, so this is a good manner of figuring. Okay, let's figure out who the
hell.
It's not
actionable. It's not actionable. it's not worthwhile because it's not actionable. You can't stop all those.
No, it's a
5,000 individuals.
byproduct. It's a byproduct.
It's
The
not a
main
primary
goal-
purpose. It's not a
That's
primary
what
purpose.
a byproduct is.
I understand that, but I'm saying
You cripple the network, you get additional information. It's intelligence. It's being able to know who's who. Anybody walking around with digits less than 5 right now, they're going to be able to say, okay, oh, maybe we didn't know about this guy, but now we do. Okay, let's get his photo. Let's get his fingerprints. Now we know his medical records. We know his history. Now they can look into it, put that guy on the list too. It's all intelligence. Now, I'm not saying they're going to run out and kill the guy today, but it's another name to put to a file. It's a happy byproduct of a very well thought out plan.
yeah, I particularly don't find it to be that useful. Its other purposes and its other byproducts are far superior and far more effective. And I think it's again, but we're not disagreeing that Israel made a great decision. But here's one of the things I found interesting. Separate of Israel and Hezbollah themselves, we have the pro-Hamas socialist progressive movement have been livid about this. They're pissed off. They want to call this a war crime, which it's not. But they want to call it a war crime, and they want to try and change the public sentiment about it because they want to support the terrorists. They want to support Hezbollah. They want to support Hamas. They want the American people to change our point of view to be in favor of the terrorists, the very same terrorists that would kill all the gay people in the progressive movement, the very same terrorists that would kill all the women because they know how to read, write, and drive a car. It makes no sense to me that they're going out of their mind. They're losing their mind because terrorists, and I mean, it's not even like there's a dispute amongst nations in the world that Hezbollah isn't a terrorist organization. Everyone agrees. They are a terrorist organization. They routinely kill women and children on purpose. They target civilians on purpose. And they are somehow saying that this hyper-targeted bombing is worse than 6,000 rockets and missiles fired into the heart of cities meant to attack civilians. And they're saying, no, but Israel is worse. I don't understand how you can have that mentality. It doesn't make sense to me. That here are left coming out and trying to support terrorism and genocide because Hezbollah believes in genocide. Hamas and the Houthis and Iran believe in genocide. And they want to support that. I don't understand it. I can't understand that. I mean, have you guys, I'm sure you've noticed the backlash, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's going to be. Okay, they're going to try to get some type of war crimes or anything else like that. So,
but it's not a war crime. A war crime is what we see from Hamas. It is what we have seen from Hezbollah and the Houthis. They are committing war crimes where they target civilians purposefully with missiles that are fired essentially randomly into civilian population centers. These pagers, these walkie-talkies were targeted towards an organization, a terrorist organization, and were primarily hitting them. I'm not saying there is never collateral damage. It's a bomb. There's always collateral damage. It's a war. There's always collateral damage.
Okay. Hamas terrorists are not state actors. So Geneva Convention and war crimes wouldn't even apply.
Well, they do have a government. Hamas does run the government of Gaza. Hezbollah is involved in the government of Lebanon. So they are state actors in that sense. But that's quasi. I understand your point. It's a quasi position in those governments, but they are in those governments. But even so, it's not for it to be a terrorist action, it has to be targeting civilians randomly with the intent of killing and harming civilians. That was never the intention.
Mm-hmm.
Nor is it the means by which they didn't. Those pagers weren't going to take out buses full of women and children.
Right.
They weren't strong enough to do that. They weren't intended to do that. They were intended to not even necessarily kill the person who had the pager or the walkie-talkie. Hurt them, yes. Maim them, okay, but not necessarily kill them. So they can't even say that. But it's worse than that. It's the left is looking for a way to justify hating Israel while they support terrorists who believe in genocide of Jews, genocide of the gay, genocide of women. They believe in genocide of anyone that doesn't believe their specific fanatical religious beliefs. And the left is supporting that. I don't get it.
Yeah.
What is going wrong with our country that we have large groups of institutions and individuals who are publicly running around saying, no, we've got to support the genocide. We got to support the terrorists.
Here's the thing is they've been going off on Israel because all the quote unquote collateral damage of they're targeting these terrorists and these Hamas actors. But this is a way that they try to minimize that collateral damage and did so very effectively. Okay, and basically weren't necessarily wanting to kill them, but they were wanting to take them out of the fight. And that's it. Okay, they were trying to limit their impact on civilians. And that's the way I look at it. And in doing that, they should actually be commended, not crucified.
Well, yeah. I absolutely think they should be commended. But I have seen the backlash from TikTok. I've seen the backlash today on YouTube. It's been filled with pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah ads trying to pull on people's emotional heartstrings to try and raise money for these terrorist organizations and terrorist adjacent organizations. And it's upsetting to me that we can see this and people aren't calling that out. In fact, they're saying, oh, how dare you bring that up? You're supposed to be in favor of these terrorist nut jobs. And I just don't get it. And I by the way, Madman J, but they're committing what? It's not an act of terror. And it wasn't an act of war crime. It was an act of war. They are fighting a battle, but it isn't ironic because it isn't what they did. Israel, I'm talking about. Unless I'm misunderstanding Madman J. But go on. I'm with you guys. Obviously, I'm very passionate about this because it pisses me off. And I hate terrorism. I hate the terrorists. I'm not upset. You know, I've had people go, but don't you feel bad for the terrorists? No, I do not. Not in the slightest. And I have no problem with saying that. I have absolutely no compassion for the terrorists. None. But that's me, you know. People calling me a bad guy for that, which I laugh at. I think it's funny. Because, again, we have to understand the perspective. And I don't think the mainstream media is putting it out there very clearly. In fact, I think they're purposefully making it muddled so people don't understand that when you're taking the position against Israel in this, Not to say that you can't criticize Israel. They're a nation like any other nation. They have leaders like any other leader. They can be wrong. They can be criticized. I'm not saying you can't criticize them, but there's a big difference between criticizing them and supporting terrorism. And people don't know the difference these days. At least that's my opinion. You guys are silent. Have I silenced?
So supposedly 12 people were killed from pager explosions.
Yeah.
Including 2 children and 4 healthcare workers.
Yeah.
Just quick, you know how you said, you know,
And 2,800 wounded people.
Advance, you know how you said, you know, people say, oh, you have no sympathy for these people and everything else.
Yeah.
I'm posting a split screen here. This was the Palestinian section of Israel on September 11th, 2001.
Yeah.
Okay. You see the rampant celebrations
Yeah.
going on for the murder of thousands of Americans?
Oh, yeah.
People ask me, do I have sympathy? No. None whatsoever. There is not anything at this point, as far as I'm concerned, that Israel can do that would not justify them taking whatever actions they need to take to secure their own sovereignty and existence. The people that brought terror to us and the people that bring terror to them are the same people, the same ideology.
Mhm.
And when you can stand there and celebrate, you celebrate the death of thousands of innocent people, not only Americans, but from, what was it, 56 different countries
Mhm.
lost citizens on
Yes.
9/11, and you can celebrate that collectively as your society. And I don't give a shit at that point if you're a member of Hamas or Hezbollah or Al Qaeda or the Houthis or the Hades or whoever the hell in other group is out there celebrating. I don't give a damn. You've all, as far as I'm concerned, you're spitting on the grave of innocent people. I don't care what happens to you at that point. I don't care. I honestly don't care at this point. If they were to turn around and make half of that area into a parking lot paved with glass, it would not make a difference to me. And that's just me speaking, but that's coming from, like I said, I lost very dear friends. I have members of my family that lost, you know, their members of their family, in-laws, cousins, and stuff like that. Not directly related to my blood, but still members of an extended family.
No.
My old neighborhood in Brooklyn, was the absolute hardest hit. There were 400 and some odd residents of my neighborhood in Brooklyn, of my parish where I went to church when I was a kid. 400 members of my community were murdered on that day. And when I see those people out there celebrating that, and so, well, you have sympathy for what Israel? Not an ounce, not an ounce. They have no sympathy for us. I see no reason why I should have any sympathy for them.
No, I get that. I get that completely, because it's real, and people forget. You know, I'm old enough. There's a lot of young people who are on the internet today that they're in their 20s. They were maybe born on or after 9/11. They don't know. They weren't there. They weren't cognizant of what was going on. I remember that day. I remember being in Midtown Manhattan in the Helmsley building, and I remember looking out the window, looking at what was happening at the Twin Towers. I remember that day. You remember that. We've been alive then. And I remember what happened on October 7th, 2023. I remember the fact that there are 18 Americans who are being held hostage at this second, tortured and being sexually abused if they haven't already been killed by Hamas. And I said initially 19, it's because we know for a fact Hamas killed one of these Americans cold-bloodedly 3 weeks ago shot him in the head rather than let him be rescued and to go home. Yeah, you asking me for compassion for those people doing those things, that's really tough. I'm sorry, I'm not Gandhi. I can't do it.
You know what else escapes a lot of people, and I really don't think people give this a lot of thought when they talk about it. Oh, the Palestinians are doing the fighting for this. The Palestinians are fighting for that, this, that, whatever else. When you're at war, you generally strike military targets.
Military and government, yes.
Okay, military and government. When these terrorists attack, they attack civilian populations exclusively. Exclusively civilian. They don't care about whether or not they hit a military target because it's random. They have a big map, and if there's one little military target in the middle of a civilian area, they'll send 100 rockets over in the hopes that they hit something. And if they kill all the civilians, they don't say, "Oh, that's collateral damage." They go, "No, that's a bonus," because now you've struck fear and terror into the hearts of the civilians. When Israel strikes back and they go after it, who do they go after? They go after the people who launched the attack. These are militants. These are people part of a terror organization that all they all swear an oath to that organization. Now, granted, it's maybe not NATO, and the UN doesn't recognize them as a military operation, but it is. It's a military operation. It's no different than if they were a militia or something like that that's not sanctioned by the government. But when their edict in the government is the destruction of Israel.
And anyone else who do not believe what they believe.
Right.
It's not limited to Israel. Yeah. It's everyone. Israel's first, but anyone that doesn't believe what they believe is fair game.
Great Satan and a little Satan. But, Israel takes great pains at striking the military targets. And by military, that's the militants, the people who do the attacks. And it's not Israel's fault that the militants will take over a hospital and say, "Oh, you bombed the hospital." No, we bombed the militant headquarters. You just happen to move it into a hospital to make it look like civilians are getting hit. You're actually killing our civilians.
Well, human shields.
But people don't pay any mind to that.
Yeah, it's a well-known fact that all of these groups, whether it's Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, they all use human shields to minimize and to restrict people in the United States and other governments from retaliating, from actually giving them the justice they deserve because they have these human shields. And it's effective in most countries. Doesn't work with Russia. Russia doesn't give a damn, which is why they very rarely ever attack Russia, because Russia will shoot everyone. Doesn't matter. And because Russia does that, no one goes after Russia or Russians. They don't bother them, because the answer is we will shoot everyone to disable them so that we can then pick out the terrorists and kill them separately. And that's what Russia has. That's their policy. That's what they've done. Now, you may say, Mike, that's inhumane. But guess what? No one takes on Russia and Russian targets. They're virtually untouched by these acts of terrorism around the world. That's just a fact.
From what I'm seeing, different reports that I've been reading in the background, the supposed health workers, at least one of them's tied to Hezbollah directly.
Several of them are.
Okay, my guess is all four of them are. The two children that were injured or killed in this, my guess is they are offspring of Hezbollah members as well.
Most likely, especially given the limited nature of the pagers. Again, they're not blowing up blocks. You're talking about a 3-foot.
Everything else that I'm reading is these pagers were sold. They weren't sold on the open market.
No.
This was a group of 3,000 pagers that Hezbollah specifically bought.
Yes.
They were the Apollo Gold pagers that, like I said, they were specifically ordered by Hezbollah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's not like Iran or Israel was just flooding the market with all these pagers out there.
No, it was targeted. It was hyper targeted.
It was very targeted.
Yeah, that's why it was so effective, and why I am so bewildered by the leftist progressive backlash, because literally it is the leftists and the progressives that are upset about this. The Democratic Socialists of America are losing their mind over this. Harvard and Columbia are losing their mind over this, not mainstream America.
Well, so is Ilhan Omar.
Well, screw her.
She has a
in
tweet
Dearborn,
up.
Michigan. Yeah.
Agreed. We should not send another dime to fund the genocide. Netanyahu's reckless disregard for civilian lives in the pager attack in Lebanon is yet another example of why we need to cut off military aid.
It wasn't a genocide. If Israel fired 3,000 rockets into Lebanon, hoping to hit some of the members of Hezbollah, that would have been terror. That would have been act of war. That would be, a war crime. That would have been terroristic, and that would be an attempt at a genocide. They didn't do that.
Oh, and for anybody, a hospital worker, a medic was injured. Okay, here's one of the medics, and one of the last strikes going on. Here's a medic, got his little medic jacket on and everything. And what does he do? He runs over to an injured terrorist, picks up his AK-47 and joins the fight. Starts firing back at the Israelis. I thought, what is he doing? I thought he was an innocent medic. I thought he was an innocent medic. I thought he wasn't a fighter. Don't tell me about your innocent people. It's all a ruse. Most of it is a ruse. It's like when they used to turn around and during the war, they would paint the hospital ship. They'd paint it white and put a big cross on the side of it. Oh, please don't blow up our hospital ship. It's got it's all our injured troops. And meanwhile, you got brigades and brigades and brigades of armed soldiers, loaded to the rafters with ammunition. But you can't fire on a hospital ship. Nothing is what it appears to be over there. Anytime somebody tells you that somebody's innocent, take it with a grain of salt.
Well, the one thing I can definitely point to in that regard is that you always hear the self-reported numbers from groups like Hamas. And again, self-reported numbers. They always say, well, there's 40,000 people that have been killed. You have soldiers. Hamas has soldiers. You're fighting. You mean to tell me not one Hamas soldier has ever been wounded or killed? No, that's a lie. It's actually 20,000 of that 40,000 are actually members of Hamas. They're their fighters. Their army have been whittled down. And yes, 20,000. Now you may say, well, 20,000 civilians is a lot. Relative to wars anywhere else in the world? No, actually it's not. But realistically, they're trying to paint a picture. Oh, it's 40,000 Palestinians. No, it's 20,000 Hamas soldiers and 20,000 Palestinians. The numbers are different. Why do they make it so big? And they make this illusion to gain an emotional ground to try and manipulate Harvard and Columbia and the future leaders of America into this delusion that if you were just a little bit more progressive, if you just hugged these small terrorist groups a little bit harder, then they would be great and Israel would stop and be defeated and these terrorists would become part of the world and the world will be beautiful. That is stupid, because those very same terrorists have written down and promised for decades, by the way, we're going to kill everyone at Harvard, kill everyone at Columbia. They want to kill every American, regardless of your religion, your race, your creed, whatever, because you're an American and you believe in things like not throwing gay people off of buildings, not setting women on fire or stoning them to death for being sexually assaulted. They are vile. It just, I mean, maybe it's me, but you know what? Even if it's just me, I'm perfectly fine. I know I'm not alone in this. And there are hundreds, thousands that could possibly see this conversation and others that I have had, and they agree. It's only that little minor, very vocal, far left. They're the ones who seem to not be able to understand simple logic. But they also happen to sway power because Ilhan Omar is running around telling Biden and Kamala Harris and the Democrats, you better do something to help my friends, the terrorists, or 100,000 people in Dearborn, Michigan won't vote for you. And that means you lose Michigan, which means you might lose the election. And that's a political game they are playing to promote terrorism and genocide. We got to call that stuff out. That's not going to help America. And I don't care if people don't like it, because it's not about your feelings. It's about the facts. You could care less how you feel about it. That is what is happening. These are the facts that are on the ground that we're dealing with at this moment. And people have to recognize that. You can have whatever feeling you want about it. That's yours. Feel however you want. The facts are, this is what's happening. It's very political and it's not in your advantage. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right, let's
go ahead and move on.
let's get into something else.
Okay.
What are we going to? I don't know. Second attempt on the president President Trump's life in 60 days.
Yeah.
Won't be the last one.
No, it's not going to be. And thing is the left is trying to downplay their role in this, but they can't downplay the fact that there was a great many of them stating, quote unquote, that Trump is a danger to democracy and needs to be stopped by any means necessary. Some of them literally saying that he needed to be shot. There's many left pundits when the Supreme Court ruled that the president has complete immunity when he is acting within the powers of his office. We're claiming that Biden could have Trump assassinated and be immune from prosecution. The left has opened up this can of worms, even though they're trying to deny it.
And they have the nerve to say that Trump needs to tone down his rhetoric.
Yeah.
He's got to tone down the guy getting shot and shot at and targeted. He's got to tone down his rhetoric.
Here's the thing: is there's a lot of people on Twitter that are claiming that both of these attacks were staged.
Joy Reid said it was staged. Matter of fact, NBC News. On Sunday, I was live. I was doing my live stream on Sunday at 3:00. I was live, and I was told by one of the audience, one of the chat, about the shooting, and I went in, and I purposefully pulled up NBC News, because mainstream news media, to show the difference between their coverage and the international coverage. And NBC News at 3 p.m. was telling their viewers that this was potentially a hoax. They were the only ones that suggested the gunshots weren't real. This didn't really happen. It was in their second paragraph and in the headline of their story. No other news agency in the world was saying that. NBC News said it. They have since changed the art. They pulled the article, changed the headlines, and they've changed their tune. But they know many of their viewers are going to remember and react to the first thing NBC said and not believe anything else and think everything else is a cover-up. They suggested it was a hoax because they didn't want to see Donald Trump get a bump in the political race, the election. And so they needed to plant a seed of doubt that no other credible news agency in the world was willing to say. Only NBC said that. That is how they try to manipulate people. It's really insulting. Real time, I caught that. Real time. I have the video up. I have a screenshot. Actually, it's on the live stream where I live streamed the page so that people could see it. It's there. So it's not even a question of, ooh, you made it up afterwards. It's a live stream, and I have captured their website, NBC's website, with that article. Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the left is literally trying to basically draw all attention off of their culpability in these assassination attempts, to the point that they're even trying to say, well, was this last one even an assassination attempt? Trump was never in the line of sight.
Thank God.
Okay, the guy was sitting in wait for him, rifle pointed through the fence, ready to shoot him.
Oh, come on, Mike. Don't we all just grab a AK-47 and camp out for 12 hours in the middle of a park, just because we want to go bird watching? I mean, isn't that natural?
You mean
here's one of the things that I want
illegally obtained
Oh, yes.
AK-47 with an obliterated serial number
Yeah.
on it. Oh, and you're also saying, the president decided to go golfing at the last minute.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about.
He wasn't on
this
his
guy
schedule.
wasn't even from Florida.
Right.
I forget where exactly he is from.
Well, they say he's from North Carolina. They say he's from Hawaii.
He lived there, yeah.
It was stolen plates on the truck that he was driving with this Harris Biden bumper sticker on it.
Yeah, it's supposedly his daughter's vehicle.
Yeah, but the guy knew to be at that particular hole at that particular time, and it was the Secret Service advance team, because they send an advance team out ahead of time to see it.
Well,
they spotted him in his gear and took shots, and the guy, and he dropped his stuff and went running. He did not decide to go golfing until that morning. Now, once the guy makes up his mind, then they disseminate a daily schedule goes out to the media so that the media knows where he's going to be, what he's going to be doing, and all the rest of that. How did this guy know that the president was going to be at that hole at that time, that he had enough time from get wherever he was to get there?
Yeah, because it wasn't on his schedule.
Well, it wasn't on his schedule till the last minutes.
I understand that critique, but the answer to the critique is he was scouting out that region for 12 hours. We don't know how many times he went back to that same spot day after day. Trump lives. The golf course is right next to Mar-a-Lago. It's right where Trump's home is. He golfs there on a regular basis. So this is a known location. Right, and if you're scouting, you find an angle of attack that seems reasonable, covered by bushes to a certain extent. It has an angle onto the field, into the golf course, that you can be able, so he's relatively hidden. He has a reasonable, he's within 500 yards of the president. So that's something that he does over time. And we don't know how many times he went back there to sit out there for 12 hours a day. It isn't unreasonable. It's just odd. But then again, we're talking about a lunatic. So
then this would further demonstrate additional failures by the Secret Service, because if this guy was out there multiple times scoping this area out for 12 hours at a time every time he went out there, and he's 300 to 500 yards away from where the president is going to be, where there's no cover, there's no concealment, there's nowhere to duck down, there's nothing for him to get down behind or anything. Why aren't these areas being routinely patrolled?
Because they don't have enough
service. Doesn't the Secret Service have? Well, does Trump have any private security contractors that routinely patrol the area?
We've talked about this before. No.
Well, he's got to have some person. He's got to have private security then, or at least bolster it. Because if they say, oh, well, you can't do it because it's the Secret Service purview. Well, Secret Service, you're friggin' failing at everything you do. It's the president's. All right, let me ask you this. If the president of the United States, the current president of the United States is not at the White House, are there Secret Service agents there?
Yes, but he's president. He's
okay.
actively president of the United
Right.
States. Totally different thing.
No, but you have the leading candidate. The leading
I
candidate for
understand
president is supposed to have a commensurate of number of guys. There's Secret Service that is stationed at Camp David. The president may
understand your
never
argument,
even go there. They're there 24 hours a day.
I understand your argument. I don't think it's wrong, but I am trying to give you the correct information. And the answer from the Secret Service is that Trump has a far lower and even lower than necessary number of Secret Service agents because he is not actively the president.
Well,
and
I
therefore,
thought all
if
of this
Biden
was
were in that same situation, you would have seen at least 300% more Secret Service, and they would have been projecting a much larger perimeter.
Then
Trump
this
isn't
again
getting that.
points to an additional failures on account of the current administration and Secret Service, because they were supposed to have their efforts redoubled and tripled following the last assassination attempt.
That's what they said publicly. That's not what they have functionally done. There's a difference. They said
Right.
that. Yes, they did say that.
That's why I'm thinking that, look, that none of this is coincidental. None of this is coincidental. You cannot have failure upon failure upon failure and keep saying that it's an oversight. At some point, you have to look at it and say it's on purpose. This is a deliberate attack to keep a deliberate manner of keeping the shields down. It's opening the windows on the armored limousine. This is what it is. It's here's a flak jacket. Let's hope it stops the bullets. This is deliberate. Maybe not Secret Service actively being the one picking up the rifle, but they're enabling it to happen.
Well, it's called a I believe it's a stochastic response, which means essentially it's the way of saying you're creating the environment for this to happen.
And speaking of, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yesterday Trump brought in the head of his private security that's been in charge of his hotels and casinos around the world, and is now handing control of security at Mar-a-Lago to him.
Yeah, and that's at Mar-a-Lago. Again, there's limitations on what he can do in other locations. Mar-a-Lago is a private residence. And again, I'm not excusing these things, but I'm trying to make sure people understand the circumstances we're dealing with. And it's just, we are seeing that Democrats and some of the establishment have created an environment that is divisive to our country. It is under protecting significant figures, because it's not just Donald Trump, it's also RFK. Even to the second, RFK is still a target for many reasons, and he's underprotected as well, as admitted by the Secret Service. And that creates a vacuum of opportunity. This creates an both the motivation and the opportunity for these crazed individuals, and they want to blame it on he had an AK-47. That's not the problem. It's that he was encouraged after years upon years of demonization, saying that if you do not obey what the Democrats and progressives have said, that you have only one response left to you, and that is violence. And that is the danger, not the AK-47, not an M16, not just a semi-automatic rifle, which both of those are. No. This is a problem of opportunity and motivation coming from the left.
Well, that piece of garbage, Hillary, 5 hours after it happened, she's over on CNN saying how Trump is the greatest danger to American democracy that we have seen since the Civil War, and he cannot be allowed to take power again.
Yeah, that was pretty vile of her. For
He's
lied.
an evil skank.
Yeah,
is what she is.
Yeah, she lied. about she got Donna Brazil gave her the questions to debate. She manipulated Bernie Sanders to kick him out because she wanted the power. She lied to the American people. She enabled the death of Americans in Benghazi because she failed to follow the operational rules of her own department. She broke the law by destroying evidence and having the evidence in the first place that she wasn't supposed to have. She is a complete mess. The last person in the universe to be saying anything about this is Hillary Clinton. But yet the left, they love her because she's popular. She has a name they know, and they have been trained to comply. And I know the people on the left watching this are going, I hate this. Why you guys are making me so angry? It's the truth. You may feel bad about this, but you feel bad because it's true. We're not making up these things. The evidence is in front of you. And that's the true danger to America. That's the true danger to America, is that we are allowing people to emotionally manipulate the public, to divide it and to set it against itself. And these same institutions, these organizations, these individuals have been pushing the idea that the only answer is comply or violence.
Well,
and that's why we see every time with the left, they're constantly, every time they go on a protest, oh, you're not paying attention. They decide to block off a bridge so that fire trucks and ambulances can't get across. They go out and they try and commit arson and burn down buildings. They go and they create autonomous zones where they hold people captive, and women get sexually abused. It's evil. It's evil.
Well, let's extrapolate it a little bit further. Because not only now it's not only Donald Trump is the greatest threat to democracy that the nation has seen since 1861, but so are his MAGA supporters. So when you could say, okay, well, if they're, and I hate the fucking word rhetoric, because every time I hear that word, I see Nancy Pelosi in my head using it. But it's not only a matter of now you're trying to draw hatred, vitriol, and potential attacks against Donald Trump, and you're trying to use your another term of theirs, their dog whistle. You're blowing your own dog whistle. That's your call to action. The man is the greatest threat to democracy we've ever had, and so are his supporters. So it's not only that you're wishing ill and you're wishing somebody would take him out. You're now wishing that they take us out. It's not only because we are. Wait a minute. The majority of Americans that support the former president, we are the threat to democracy. Isn't your
conservative movement? Yeah.
Isn't your democracy about one person, one vote, majority rule, and all the rest of that? Well, if there's more of us than there are of you, and what's more democratic than that? How are we a threat to democracy if we're the ones that want to go that direction?
Because it's not what they have approved of. And it's not about democracy. That's just the word they hold in front of them. It's like the human shields of Hamas. Here's their shield. It's democracy. I'm going to say and do this for democracy.
The point is, at this point, the only thing that they have left, the only arrow left in their quiver is violence. Mm-hmm. That's the only arrow they have left, and they are going to stoke the flames of violence until it breaks out. Right now, the president is supposed to have a rally someplace tomorrow. I forgot where he's supposed to be. You know what's in the streets all over, located in the city by where he's supposed to be? Pallets of bricks. There's pallets of bricks everywhere. He's going to Ohio. He's going to Ohio tomorrow. And there's pallets of bricks in the street. Nobody knows how they got there. But if you go to Twitter and you look, there's people posting pictures all over the place of the pallets of bricks everywhere that nobody understands how they got there. The violence is the last quiver, the last arrow in their quiver. It's their last hope. They want to try and go all out to do whatever they can to try and suspend the election before Election Day by being able to call a national emergency, because that's the only way they're going to retain power, because that woman is sinking faster than the Titanic.
Well, they never expect, I've said it here many times, they have never expected Kamala Harris to win. because she is unpleasant and she has no idea what she's doing. And even though she got promoted because of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, uh, she's above her pay grade. She's not capable to function at this level. That's proven by what has she done. Look at her record. It is a record of failure everywhere that she has gone. And when people say, but you can't say she's DEI, she was hired on the basis of the color of her skin and her gender.
Yeah, Biden told us who.
Yeah,
Biden told us what his
woman.
criteria was.
Had to
He
be a
told
black
us what
woman,
the criteria was. I need to hire a black woman to be vice president.
which instantly means that she was hired because of DEI. You put filters on who could be hired. Therefore, it can't be the best person. Your filters won't allow that because the best person might be an Asian male, and you can't hire that. That's what Biden did. He put filters on. So she is a DEI hire, whether people like it or not. That's the truth. And she has failed. You may not like that, but look at the border. Look at what she did in South Korea. Look at the way she was treated in Europe when she made, just before Putin decided to go into Ukraine. We have seen a historic level of failure from her at every level on every project she has done. And the Democrats know you can't hide that. Listen to her talk about her policies. I'm going to throw money. Her answer is throw money at every single problem facing America. It doesn't work. That's inflationary. You're only going to make the problem worse because throwing money at something isn't a plan. It's a feel-good response, but it's not a plan. People will love to have free money until they have to then pay for it because of inflation and a loss of a job. And we know that these are the things they're doing because what happened today? We had Trump. He was at a rally today, and they had the bombing hoax where there was a bomb threat before he went out to speak. It wasn't, at last I saw in the news, which is about 2 hours ago, it wasn't valid. But again, it's about the left putting in fear into the public to try and make them comply. Everything the left does, all the violence the left does, and that they condone and that they accept, it's all about compliance. And that should scare people.
It's not that they condone it. They don't condone the violence. They just claim it's somebody else doing it.
Same difference to me. You know,
they condemn the violence. They condemn the violence. Michael Moore.
They say the words.
Michael Moore could beat a child to death in the middle of the street for the benefit of global warming. And the next thing you know, Michael Moore is the worst Republican you've ever met. They will just blame the violence on somebody else. They will never take, I mean, look at how they've twisted the terms for Nazi and fascist. Yes. They've completely forgot the socialist aspect of Nazis. They forget who the fascists were during World War II and whose side they were fighting on. And they forget that the policies they subscribe to today are both in line with those ideologies, but they'll use those terms to describe the people who stand in complete opposition of those terms. Okay, it's always transference with them. We are always guilty of the crimes that they commit.
Overwhelmingly.
In their eyes, that's how they look at us.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, and we see that consistently, especially in this year. This is probably the most eye-opening election that we have ever seen. We have never seen an election where we've had the duly voted on candidate, the primary guy, the person who won the primaries in his party overwhelmingly. First of all, the primaries weren't open. People were kicked out rather than allowed.
Yeah, he won rigged primaries.
Yep, massively, openly rigged. RFK, oh, you want to run? That's fantastic. You're no longer a Democrat. And by the way, news media, he has a blackout. Don't ever talk about him again, unless you're telling me how you hate him. Then, so they rigged the primaries. They get a candidate who wins overwhelmingly, Joe Biden. They toss him aside when he's found to be mentally incapable, yet he's still president. They still support him, think he should be on Mount Rushmore. He is incapable of having a conversation. I don't understand it. And then they undemocratically select and anoint an entirely different person to be their lead of their party, the Democratic nominee. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
and they're saying, well, we're Democrats.
The person who 30 days before Biden dropping out was being debated on every major news network,
Yes,
whether or not she should be dropped from the ticket because she was so unpopular and such a drag on the ticket.
Yes, they were going to replace her. And this is all of the major mainstream news media had reported about the rumors that they were looking to see if they could replace Kamala Harris with Greg Newsom out of California, the governor of California, or Gretchen Whitmer, if they could possibly replace them, have them replace Kamala Harris because she was so unpopular and because she had approval ratings that were below Dan Quayle after he had his potato incident. It's amazing, but they don't expect that any of us, the mainstream news media, don't believe we remember any of these facts. In fact, they're counting on it. The politicos, the establishment, are counting that people do not remember anything. You don't remember what Kamala Harris said in 2019, that you don't remember what she's done since 2021, that you don't remember what they were saying about her in April and in May. They're counting on the fact that people just don't remember.
These people are so ridiculous. Do you want to know who listen, mainstream media, look at me for a second. I want you to look at the other two guys on the screen and think for a second. Don't think for a second that we forget anything. We don't. We don't forget anything. And you let me get, and I'm sitting here looking right into the camera. There's nothing else in front of me. How many people can name the boat involved in the Gary Hart scandal that forced him out of the presidential race? Can you think of it? Can anyone think of it? I know it. You know the name of the boat? Monkey Business was the name of the boat. If I remember the name of a boat that put that was part of a scandal that put a Democrat out of the race in a race that I wasn't old enough to vote in yet, I sure as shit remember what your candidate said 3 months ago. You know, friggin' break. They think we forget. That's how stupid they think we're and well, Kamala even said it. You know, she says that the American people are stupid. Well, at least 18 to 25-year-olds. They're so stupid. That's why they need leaders. That's why we keep them in dormitories. You know, that's why they want 16 advisors. You know, because they're stupid. They make stupid choices. Remember, 18 to 25, if this is your first time you're going to vote, if you're thinking about pulling the lever for Kamala, remember, she says you make stupid choices.
No, they do, but that's besides the point. But Democrats want 16-year-olds to vote.
Yeah. Well, they make 18 to 25-year-olds make stupid choices, but we still rely on them on that age group more than any for the defense of our nation.
Yes.
We rely on that age group more than just about any to keep our economy rolling.
Yes, it's true.
Okay, we rely on that age group more than any to make sure that we've got fresh crop of employees that keep our infrastructure going.
Sure.
Without that group of people, we don't have our white collar people coming in, such as lawyers, doctors, teachers, people who work in finance or anything. These are the people going into college. They're so stupid. We can't trust them to do anything on their own because they make stupid choices. But our whole, but wait a minute, don't you target those people with your social media platforms? Aren't you paying those people $50,000 each to go to your DNC convention to try and convince the rest? Oh, they're so stupid, but you rely on them so very much. It's kind of a double-edged sword when you think about it, isn't it?
Well, it's manipulation. They don't.
Maybe they should stop talking about any group of Americans like we're fucking stupid. Maybe they should start to treat every group of Americans with a little bit of dignity and respect by being honest with us about their policies. being
You're
honest
asking-
with us about their positions and letting us make decisions based on what we believe is best for our own values and our own future,
Frank,
rather than trying to manipulate us.
you're asking for too much, and they do not have faith that. And listen to all of the Democrats, the pundits, the elected officials. They do not have faith that if they just present their policies, that people will vote for them. If that's it, if it was just a matter of here's the policy, this is what we expected to do, and you compare it to anything else, you'll say this is not the best choice we could possibly make, and therefore they will instead lie, hype. I mean, when we hear Kamala talking about, oh, her economic plan, which is print money, is better than she's got all these economists that are saying it's great. Well, the one thing, Goldman Sachs in particular, she said, Goldman Sachs, my plan is the best and Donald Trump's will lose money. First of all, she lied. Goldman Sachs didn't do it. It's an independent report. Second thing, they said that the difference between her economic plan and Donald Trump's is 0.2%, which is nothing. It's negligible. It means they're the same. Third, doesn't mean either one of them are going to get their plans actually executed by Congress. But the fourth thing that I thought was really interesting about this is that Goldman Sachs themselves said that Trump's plan would grow the economy. And she's running around, Kamala Harris, lying to the American people, lying to your face in debates and in speeches, and being quoted by MSNBC, all the left-leaning news media, who do not correct this and say, when she says, "Oh well, Trump's plan is going to lose money," that's not what Goldman Sachs said. That's not what the report says. She is factually, absolutely, 1,000%, and confirmed by the CEO of Goldman Sachs. She's lying to the American people. That's not what it says. But she doesn't get called out on that because they want to push the feelings until they can get past November. They just need people to vote, and they want them to vote down the line. They don't care if Kamala wins. Honestly, I truly believe this. They don't care if Kamala wins. They want to have a majority in the Congress, in the House of Representatives, and in the Senate. They want to maintain their power, and they can wait. If Kamala wins, great. If she doesn't, they don't care. As long as she got enough Democrats to show up and hold on to the House and the Senate. That's what they care about. They don't care about you and me. That's why they lie.
All right, so Jan's posted up in the thing about zero ground for Kamala in election polls.
She's gained 1.5. Her polling is flatlined. And I said this,
right now it's up a little bit. It's at 2
meaningless.
on RCP.
It depends on what you're looking at. I'm looking at the 5-way race. And if you look at the 5-way race, Kamala, which is the most realistic race, which is her versus, there's Chase Oliver for the Libertarians. There's Jill Stein for the Green Party communists. There's Dr. Cornel West, who's uber super communist, and he's independent. You've got Donald Trump and you've got Kamala Harris. Okay, those are the 5 candidates in the race at this time. And when you look at that trend, and what I don't look at any one poll. People love to point to this poll says this. I don't care. Look at the trend. And what you see in the trend is what is most likely true, especially as you have multiple sources, multiple polls, all saying the same thing. And what they are saying is Kamala Harris is stuck at 47%. That's with more than $500 million in donations. That's in every left-leaning news media source telling everyone she is the bestest, greatest thing that has ever existed for the last roughly 45 days in a row. You cannot find any negatives. They rewrote her history, her record as a senator. They have rewritten everything about her, and they demonize everyone who says anything about her negatively as a racist and a sexist. They have done everything they could to prop her up. And with all of that, with the DNC anointment, with her relative success of being better than Joe Biden in the debate, she still can't get past 47%. She's flat. That is zero improvement. And the moment that all of that pent up, that artificial momentum stops, because you can't keep it forever, eventually she's going to talk like she did when she did an interview with Philadelphia ABC News, and people will hear it and people will see what she has to say. She's going to speak. She's going to get quoted. And as soon as she does, she loses support. The Muslim Women for Kamala Harris dropped her like a bag of dog do.
Well, listen, how bad does a Democrat candidate have to be for the Teamsters to refuse to give you an endorsement?
Well,
the
yeah,
Teamsters,
extreme. That's pretty extreme.
Okay, the Teamsters have come out and say they will not be endorsing Kamala Harris because it's clear that a vast majority of their own members are supporting Donald Trump.
True.
All right, if you can't,
Well, how bad of a Democrat do you have to be in order to get BLM not to support you?
True. That they are also another group that's. It just goes to tell you, the more you look at, and again, the more people hear about her and the more people know about her, and people like us are able to say, okay, don't trust me. Look up her record. It will be difficult. Google is using their monopoly to try and hide stuff, but actually look at her record and you will see it is a record of failure. Do you want someone who has failed for more than 4 years in a row? Do you want them to continue to fail for the next 4 years of your life?
Oh, and on that note,
let me share you this real quick. If you want to talk about her record and stuff like that, and I had the closed caption. The sound is going to come out, but I got the closed caption on too, just so you could hear it. Oh, wait, there it is.
In the sanctity of your locked home doesn't mean that we're not going to walk into that home and check to see if you're being responsible and safe in the way you conduct your affairs. Have you heard from responsible behaviors among everybody in the community? And just because you legally possess a gun in the sanctity of your locked home doesn't mean that we're not going to walk into that home and check to see if you're being responsible and safe in the way you conduct your affairs.
Yeah, that's as bad as her conversation with ABC News in Philadelphia. She was talking to reporter Brian Taff, Taff. I've covered this in detail. And what she said was that gun bans do not violate your Second Amendment rights, that the government having a gun ban, restrictions on what firearms you can own, like red flag laws and beyond, do not violate the Second Amendment. She is an idiot. That is the definition of violating your Second Amendment rights. She has no understanding of the words shall not be infringed. Just like she's saying, as the example you just put up there, where she's saying, oh, you have a firearm in your own home, your private property, to protect your home, and she wants to have the government go into your property, which they can't do, violation of Fourth Amendment, and take your property from you because she doesn't like it. That is evil. And that's the only word for that is authoritarian.
Yeah, but think about that. The quote, we are going to require responsible behaviors among everybody in the community. And just because you legally possess a gun in the sanctity of your locked home doesn't mean we are not going to walk into that home and check to see if you're being responsible. You're going to walk into the homes of legal, the quote, your words, the sanctity of somebody's locked home to determine whether or not they're keeping their gun safe in their locked home. And people say, well, it's not part of it's not safe storage. You need a safe. Listen, the sanctity of my home is my safe zone. I shouldn't need a safe. I shouldn't need this. I shouldn't need.
Doesn't matter if you do or don't need it. It's your home.
My home is my safe. My home is my domain. It's my dominion. It's my cave. It's my solitude. My fortress of solitude. You have no right to think you can enter somebody's home because you decide you want to check to make sure that somebody's complying with your idea of what safety is. This is a tyrant that we are dealing with. This is not a Democrat by John Kennedy's uh, definition. This is not a Democrat by Jimmy Carter's definition. This is not a Democrat by Bill Clinton's definition. This is Benito Mussolini that we're dealing with here. All right, this
Hugo
person
Chavez, Chairman
that
Xi
they
out of
have
China.
got all-encompassing authority and power. And plus, you've seen the quote that she says, I learned at a young age that when I became district attorney, with just the swipe of my pen, I could have you arrested. I could have you put in jail for 48 hours. I could have you deny you the contacts from your family. I could cost you your job. I could cost you your standing in the community just with the swipe of my pen. And then decide I'm not even going to charge you with anything. And then let you out when I see fit. This is your candidate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Are
and
you
I
freaking
recall-
kidding me?
Yes, she said this, and she meant it.
Right.
She meant every
Okay.
word.
So,
right, she meant it.
okay, so Kamala Harris thinks that she can just ban, and a lot of the left are thinking that they can ban weapons that are quote unquote military grade weapons.
Every weapon is a military grade weapon at some time.
Okay, so United States v. Miller, 1939. Okay, here is what the court said. In the absence of any evidence tending to show that possession or use of a shotgun having a barrel less than 18 inches in length at this time has some reasonable relationship to the preservation or efficiency of a well-regulated militia, we cannot say the Second Amendment guarantees the right to keep and bear such an instrument. Certainly, it is not within judicial notice that this weapon is any part of ordinary military equipment, or that its use could contribute to the common defense. So right there, the court is saying that the Second Amendment protects ordinary military equipment and equipment that can contribute to the common defense.
Every weapon is and or was a weapon of war. A hammer is a derivation of both a club and a war hammer, depending on whether you want to go back to ancient times or the Middle Ages. Your knife is a version of a sword or a dagger or a sharp flint rock, depending on what time frame you want to look at, and they were all used for war. Fork comes from a pitchfork, same concept. There is literally, I mean, people use bricks to fight and commit war. There is no weapon or anything that has been used as a weapon that has not been used as a weapon of war. It is stupid to try and classify it otherwise. It's just dumb. It's not historically correct.
Now, the Supreme Court in 2016. Okay, now this is before the supposed quote unquote biased court claimed of the left. So, in this decision, dated March 21st, 2016, the court has held that the Second Amendment extends prima facie to all instruments that constitute bearable arms, even those that were not in existence at the time of the founding. To all instruments that can constitute bearable arms. This would include AK-47s, AR-15s, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Stun guns.
Mm-hmm.
It would include a
This
stun gun.
particular case was about stun guns.
Yeah.
But right there, all instruments that constitute bearable arms.
Well, again, they're counting on the fact when Kamala says these things, when we hear this from the Democrats and the progressives, they are counting on the fact that people do not know their rights and aren't going to check. They know that the majority of people are going to be more happy to watch the Housewives of Who Gives a Damn and 90-Day Dumb Shit, and they're going to watch that fervently. They're going to go and watch the football game, the basketball game, the soccer game, or some other game, and they're not going to bother to spend 1 hour a week, let alone 1 hour a month, to actually find out what is the truth. They're counting on that because if people did, they couldn't get away with what they're doing.
And
They would
here's
lose
the
their
thing,
power.
folks, is these people are going to continue to pass these laws because, number one, we don't hold them accountable. We expect courts to hold them accountable. So they're going to continue to pass these laws in violation of court precedents that's already been, I just showed you 3 cases. In violation of court precedents that has already stated that these weapons are protected by the Second Amendment. The Bruin decision is another one that continues that. And they are trying to claim that they still support the Second Amendment by passing these literal unconstitutional bans. Okay, any state right now that has a ban on assault weapons is in violation of the Constitution and in violation of Supreme Court precedents. Not in just one case, but in multiple cases.
And it all comes down to their ego. What they know they can get away with and the way they think. And if anybody was doubting whether or not I was lying about what this one said,
Part of that work, I learned that with the swipe of my pen,
listen to how
I could
scary
charge
it is.
someone with the lowest level offense. And because of the swipe of my pen, that person could be arrested. They could sit in jail for at least 48 hours. They could lose time from work and their family maybe lose their job. They'd have to come out of their own pocket to help hire a lawyer. They'd lose standing in their community. All because of the swipe of my pen. Weeks later, I could dismiss the charges, but their life would forever be changed. So I learned at a very young age the power.
Now you think about that. Your mic's off, Mike.
She's making that speech in 2019 before Democrats abandoned her and her campaign attempt failed in bankruptcy. 95% of Democrats rejected her because they heard her speak and they realized what
They knew
happens when you
then.
put her in power.
They knew then how radical this woman is.
Hmm?
They knew that even the Democrats said, "Oh, that's a little much for us. That's a little much." Because
And to think that she didn't use those type of tactics against Joe Biden to secure this presidential nomination, you've got to be blind.
well, did you see the woman that she put in prison in
Which one?
California 10 years ago? 20, whatever it was. They passed an anti-truancy law in California a while back that said that if your kid missed more than 10% of the calendar year up to a certain date, that the parents could be charged criminally for aiding to truancy. There was a woman, African American, black woman, whose daughter had to miss 15% of the school year because she was in the hospital fighting for her life.
Mhm.
She had gotten sickle cell anemia, and as a byproduct of the sickle cell anemia, her daughter, who was 11 years old at the time, had a stroke. This poor girl is in the hospital. All of this time, the police went on Kamala Harris's order, went to the hospital and arrested her mother because the daughter missed school, to which the school was notified of the daughter's condition. They had copies of the doctor's reports going to the school. The school administrators and principals knew that the girl was in the hospital fighting for her life, and still they arrested this woman and put her in jail. Subsequently, the woman lost her job, was evicted from her apartment, almost lost custody of her kid because, as you point out in the comment section there, it works just the same way that red flag laws work, because now you're contributing to the delinquency of a minor. You're no longer a fit parent. So she almost loses custody of her child. The daughter gets out of the school, gets out of the hospital, finally, winds up having another stroke. The mother's got to move them into a frigging hotel because they lost the apartment, got evicted. The woman wound up going bankrupt, losing everything that she had. Why? Because these people, like Kamala Harris, they write these blanket laws, which is supposedly these feel-good, we have to do something laws, and they don't give a goddamn about the side effects of it. Or you have to start to think to yourself, maybe these are not unintended consequences. Maybe they are the intended consequences, like red flag laws.
They never consider, or they won't tell the public that they've considered any of the consequences of their actions. When Obama passed, not the Obamacare, but the shovel-ready jobs, and he gave out all those checks to everyone, free money, the Obama money, you got an Obama check, and 144,000 people instantly lost their food stamps because they didn't pay attention to the details. And when they gave everyone in America that check, yeah, that raised the income that these people who were on food stamps, they were getting it because they needed it for their families. Well, it just bumped their income status, and no one bothered to adjust for that. So they had to cut out their food stamps. So by giving them the free Obama check, they took away their food stamps and their ability to feed their families. This is what the Democrats do on a regular basis. They tell you, oh, red flag laws are going to make you safe. They fail to tell you that in 3 out of 4 studies that have been done, red flag laws don't make you safe. And in the one study, that the closest thing that a red flag will do is maybe reduce the number of people committing suicide, not mass shootings, not school shootings, maybe reduce the number of suicides. But they also don't tell you, oh, by the way, and the government's going to take your children because you're unfit. Because if the government took away your Second Amendment rights without you breaking a law, then they can take your kids too, because you're just that dangerous. They don't like to mention these things.
Well, listen, none of these gun laws they come up with or anything else like that are ever designed to mitigate crime or reduce it.
Never.
Because they love the dead people. The more shootings they are, the more school shootings or crime, whatever it is, anything that's committed by gun, they love it. They love it. They love it. They love it. The Democrats don't want to rid the world of guns. They want to rid you of your gun. They still want theirs. They still want the authoritarians to have the guns so they can keep themselves in power while they make sure to remove your advantage that you have. But they will use the deaths as an excuse to disarm you. They do not care one bit about reducing the crime, because you know what they'll do? Listen, if they want to reduce the crime, you know what they do? They stop reporting on it. Okay,
Well, yeah.
let's look at the Democrat cities across the recent FBI statistics just came out, right? And when you look deep into the numbers and you start looking at
They didn't get all the reporting.
that no longer report the crimes because theft is down. Yeah, that's because you have decided to not prosecute any misdemeanors. You've decided to not prosecute felonies unless they're $5,000 in value or more. You've decided not to prosecute simple assault, sexual assault. You've decided not to report on these things in major metropolitan Democrat-run cities.
They're
Okay?
manipulating the poll. They're
Yeah, they
manipulating the
manipulate.
results.
They tell you how safe their communities are, but at the same time, how dangerous how much danger you're in because of guns. Well, which is it? Are we in safe communities, or is this the old west shoot 'em up and everybody's got to be disarmed? You can't have it both ways. Don't tell me how safe it is, and then tell me I'm in danger.
Well, a great example of that is New York State Governor Hochul, Kathy Hochul, has said that New York State enacted additional restrictions even after the Supreme Court said what she did was unconstitutional. She has restricted the ability of American citizens to be able to have conceal and carry in New York State. Even though, when asked by CBS News, are people who conceal carry more or less likely to have commit a crime, a violent crime with a gun? And her answer was, it doesn't matter. Literally, this is what Hochul said. It doesn't matter. And she broke the law. She makes unconstitutional laws because it doesn't matter, because she's going to make everyone safe.
Because she's quote unquote immune, because she has executive immunity.
Well, that's one of the things. But then she goes a month later and she activates 750 National Guard members to go into the New York subway, which they are still there now, and 250 members of the state police who are still in New York City subways right now, even though the number of people who are being murdered and attacked and stabbed and assaulted in New York City subways has not changed.
Oh, and by the way, weren't the members of the National Guard that were deployed to the New York City subways, weren't they all carrying M4s?
Yes.
And weren't the state police all carrying AR-15s? Because state police aren't allowed to have select fire rifles. Not in New York, unless there's special weapons and tactics. But the rifle she doesn't deem is good for Americans, that this weapon of war has no place on our streets. But they're okay if our cops are carrying them in the subway, though.
Yeah, it's okay if the state is carrying it, but not civilians. Yeah.
So what are you saying? The state, so when your state representatives, your state law enforcement are carrying weapons of war and they're policing the civilian population of the city, that to me tells me that you are using law enforcement to wage war against your citizens.
Yeah.
If they're carrying quote unquote weapons of war, you're waging war against your citizens. Well, maybe it makes sense. I mean, after all, she did have a Chinese spy working in her office that went with her to the White House a couple of months ago and took a tour.
Oh, you're talking about Linda Sun, who worked for Andrew Cuomo and Kathy Hochul, and is one of more than half a dozen Chinese spies found working with Democrats since 2018.
Yeah, these are the people that are going to tell us how to run our lives. They're actively employing foreign nationals who are acting as spies for hostile governments, and they're going to tell us that they know better.
Yeah, and it literally is about a half dozen since 2018. Dianne Feinstein, Eric Swalwell, half a dozen members of California's state legislature, Linda Sun, who is working for both Andrew Cuomo and Kathy Hochul. There's a few others, but that's just off the top of my head, my memory, and that's almost half a dozen right there.
It seems like Uber does a better background check on its employees than the federal or state governments do. Because at least when an Uber driver comes to your house, they text you a picture of the guy, his name, what kind of car he's in, his license plate number, and all the rest of that stuff. That's plenty of time for you to do a background check on the guy before you get in the car. Does anybody in government give a shit anymore who they're employing?
They do when they cash checks.
Yeah, donation
So,
checks.
Frank, I want to go back. You still have that video available of Harris?
Which one?
The
Yes,
stroke
I
of
do.
a pen?
Yes, I do.
Okay, replay that real quick, and then I want to go into this.
I learned, I think I was, 22 when I started that work. I learned that with the swipe of my pen, I could charge someone with the lowest level offense. And because of the swipe of my pen, that person could be arrested. They could sit in jail for at least 48 hours. They could lose time from work and their family maybe lose their job. They'd have to come out of their own pocket to help hire a lawyer. They'd lose standing in their community. All because of the swipe of my pen. Weeks later, I could dismiss the charges, but their life would forever be changed. So I learned at a very young age the power.
Which,
Now-
by the way, never changed any of those laws. She never changed that in California. That still
No,
exists.
she actually improved on it.
Yes.
Okay, I've got several things that I'm going to go through here real quick.
Okay.
Okay. Let's close this. Close that. Judge rips Harris office for hiding problems. San Francisco crime lab scandal.
This is
San
2000.
Francisco District Attorney Kamala Harris offices violated defendants' rights by hiding damaging information about a police drug lab tech that was indifferent to demands that it account for its failings.
What year was that?
2010.
2010.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And this is from the San Francisco
Harris
newspaper.
prosecuted the innocent. This is from the Galesburg Register Mail. This is August 15th, 2020. Someday, I suppose, we'll find out just how the vetting process for Kamala Harris went. Because as she worked her way up in California to California Attorney General, she did a lot of very bad things to get poor, mostly Black people into prison, as detailed in the New York Times, January 17th, 2019. Laura Bazelon article. Kamala Harris was not a progressive prosecutor. Time after time, when progressives urged her to embrace criminal justice reforms as district attorney and then the state's attorney general, Ms. Harris opposed them or stayed silent. Most troubling, Harris fought tooth and nail to uphold wrongful convictions that had been secured through official misconduct that included evidence tampering, false testimony, and suppression of crucial information by prosecutors.
Yeah. That's all well documented. It's true. And all of that's true. Well documented. She did all of those things and more.
Kamala Harris, pattern of contempt for voters and the law. California Globe. This is 2019. Senator Kamala Deve Harris has declared herself unalterably opposed to the death penalty, but some critics, left and right, superficially declare her career as a prosecutor in San Francisco and California proves otherwise. False. Her actions disproved whether words may or may not pass over her lips from time to time. She deviously pretends one thing while doing another. It's a pattern of contempt for voters and the law, including the death penalty.
Yeah. This is again part of the consistency. Go on.
Okay. This is from 2010. Okay. In a 26-page ruling, Superior Court judge lays responsibility for hundreds of dismissed drug cases squarely at the feet of district attorney, stating prosecutors hid behind procedural mechanism after failing multiple times to disclose evidence involving SFPD witnesses. In her May 17th order, which compels the disclosure of certain crime lab-related documents in 60 narcotics cases, Masalo details systemic withholding by prosecutors of evidence of misconduct in the crime lab and among SFPD employees. Defense attorneys with their clients are entitled to the material under Brady v. Maryland. District Attorney Kamala Harris has said her office could not conduct background checks on Madden or more than 80 police officers. Okay, so Harris again violating law, violating court orders. She doesn't care about law. What she cares about is to win, and she will use every means necessary to secure that win, including deceit, deception, evidence tampering, making false claims, etc.
Yeah, that and some sexual activities, which was how she got into politics. Ask Willie Brown. It's a well-known fact. It's not disputed. It's her history. You may not like it. It's not picking on her to point out that her entry into politics was because of her affair with a married man named Willie Brown, who happened to be a mayor in California. That's just the truth. It's just fact. So I mean, her character is questionable. Her
At best.
at best, and there are many episodes of it, and then we have her experience is negative. She's failed at everything she's done. So I mean,
She has.
that's just what we're looking at.
Okay, the only way she has ever won anything is to cheat. Literally. To win her cases, she cheated. She hid evidence, withheld evidence, manipulated evidence, tampered with evidence.
Judges have said that, yeah, and there's no
Okay,
question.
she cheats.
Yeah, and we do know she's held prisoners longer than their sentence. We do know that she's held individuals who are on death row and held them in solitary confinement beyond their sentence when they were innocent.
She knew were innocent.
Yes, the keyword, it was publicly known.
Withheld exculpatory evidence at a trial, hid that exculpatory evidence as a means of trying to deny a retrial, and then and even on appeals, mishandled, destroyed, hid evidence that she knew when these people were innocent.
No,
she is a dangerous. Listen, after this election is over and she loses this election handily, don't be surprised if you don't see her down in Venezuela trying to curry favor with the leadership down there to take that country over, because that's her ilk.
No, she won't go down there because she's, again, no one likes her. She's not an appealing person. People don't like dealing with Kamala Harris. They do it because she has an elected office.
Well, and here's the thing, okay? Like I was just saying, she will do anything to win. Okay? She literally cheated to get the Democratic nomination. She did not go through the process. There wasn't a single person that voted for her except for the delegates.
Wait a minute. Let's be fair. Let's be fair, Mike. Even though she profited from the elites of the Democratic Party picking her because they had no other choice, because she was the only one who had access to the money, and they didn't have enough time to gin up another candidate, she wasn't the one who pushed that through. I got to give her, I don't want to pick on her unfairly.
Are you
her
sure?
record is her record. She wasn't the one who pushed that forward. Nancy Pelosi, Obama, Chuck Schumer, they kicked out Joe Biden and they put Kamala in. So fair is fair. Of course, Kamala did have the choice to say, Joe Biden gave me the opportunity to be vice president. I don't want to run against him. I don't want to replace him. If she actually believed that he was the mental giant that she was telling us up until literally the day before the debate with Donald Trump, if she actually believed that, then she could have said no, but she didn't.
No, she saw the vice presidency as a stepping stone. Okay. And she knew the condition Joe Biden was in. She worked with him every day. If she didn't know his cognitive decline, she's a damn liar.
Yeah. Or she's enough of a fool that she shouldn't be in the job.
Was apparent shortly after he took the oath. Okay, she knew exactly how bad it was. Okay, and say she didn't is bullshit. Okay, and here's the thing. At any time in the last 4 years, as the vice president and as a member of the cabinet, she could have raised an Article 20 or a 25th Amendment concern. And she didn't. Okay. It was literally what got her the nomination was them threatening Biden with a 25th Amendment concern at the last stages when there wasn't a chance for anybody's primary against her.
Yeah. And this brings me back to, and what are we looking at with Trump, who has been speaking to everyone? He's been doing interviews, even when they're aggressively against him, like with ABC News. He has gone out to talk to the people. And again, you don't have to like Donald Trump because no one cares. Elections aren't about who you like. It's about policies, who's effective, who's ineffective. And you don't have to think he's a nice person. He is telling people what he thinks. He's telling people why he's going to, what he wants to do and why he wants to do it. And we've got Kamala Harris being coddled. She's had all of less than half an hour talking to the news media about what she plans to do as the most powerful executive in the world. And we know less about what she thinks she wants to do than I don't know. I know more about what's going on in Venezuela's government right now.
Well, Trump was asked, he was in California the day before yesterday, and they asked him the same question that they asked her. They said, with the price of everything being as high as it is, what are you going to do specifically to help bring the costs down? And on point. And the media didn't cover it. I happen to watch it live. He said, well, he goes, let's look at 3 things that we can do immediately to bring the cost down. The first thing we have to do is address the cost of energy in this country. Everything that we do, from manufacturing to delivery, everything is revolving around energy. The cost of energy is half the price of everything that we consume. If we could bring the cost of energy down by opening up our pipelines, doing this, doing that, and everything else, he goes, we'll see an immediate reduction in price because they don't want to pass these costs off to the consumers because that hurts their sales in the end time. They would rather have less expensive products everybody can sell, and they'll be able to sell more of, making more profit. The other thing we can do is we can start looking at our prices of insurances and why are insurances going up, and then he cited that. And he cited other things. He gave very clear, cogent examples of how to bring the prices down, including talking about interest rates and warned us. He said, listen, in the next day or two, you're going to see them politicize. They're going to do something with the interest rates. They'll drop it a quarter of a point to half a point to something to try and bolster Kamala's numbers by saying, look at where the interest rates are, which they did today. They dropped it down a half a point.
Yes, it did.
Okay, they dropped that down. When they asked Kamala, what are you going to do specifically to bring the prices down? She told us how she grew up in a middle-class family where everybody was worried about their lawn, and that her mother saved enough money to put a down payment on a house, and that it's very important. They take it very, very seriously. It's very, very serious. Very, very serious.
And that she's going to give people more money through tax cuts, but she doesn't say anything about how she's going to bring prices down.
Well, they have her $25,000 plan that they're talking about. She wants to give people a $25,000. Right. They want to give people a $25,000 tax credit so they can buy their first house. Now, if you sit and you actually do the numbers on a $300,000 house, if the house is $300,000, they give you a $25,000 tax credit with the interest rate that we're in now, versus buying the house at the proper price of $275,000 to where it should be. But let's just say you buy the house full price, $300,000, at the interest rate we're supposed to be at. Her $25,000 plan might mean that the purchase price is $25,000 less because you're getting a tax reduction, a tax credit on that. But over the life of the loan of the 30-year mortgage that you are going to have to employ at the rates currently, you'll be spending $190,000 more for that house over the long run, as opposed to buying the house at full price at the interest rate it was prior to Harris and Biden taking office.
I've seen the math being done on that before, and it works out to, on a monthly basis, you'd be paying about $1,991 per month at current interest rates before they did the cut today. And if you had, that's with Kamala's $25,000 tax credit, you'd be paying $1,991. But if you had a rate cut as suggested by Donald Trump, then your actual monthly payment without the extra $25,000 would be $1,251. It is a difference of about $702 overall, which means it's 52% less expensive for a family under Trump's tax cut policy rather than Kamala's 25%, $25,000 tax credit. Big difference. People don't do the math. They don't understand what these things mean, nor do they understand. To make that $25,000, you have to print money that we don't have. That's inflationary. It adds to the inflation of energy, which means poor people will become more poor. It does not save anyone. It is stupid what she has offered. It isn't a savings plan. But I want to take it back to, unless you wanted to go on with this, Mike, I wanted to go back to the election and going back to the attempts on Trump's life. And you notice this is why we're hearing the left demonize Donald Trump and MAGA. We're pointing out facts. You don't have to like the facts. You don't have to like any of us. You don't have to like the way we say the facts. But they are yet and still and always will remain facts. The history of Kamala is a fact. You may not like it. You may not like the way people talk about it, but it is a fact. You may not like the way that her history as vice president has shown nothing but failure. The Biden-Harris administration has been nothing but a failure. You don't have to like that. You don't have to like the way I discuss that. It is still a fact. And at the end of the day, when people go to the election, yes, many people will vote based on their emotions. Most of those people vote straight down the line, party line, whether you're red or blue, doesn't matter, because your emotion is tied to your political ideology. Fine. But 45% of America isn't in a party, and they don't vote straight down the party line when they vote. So that emotion isn't going to work. They're going to work off of facts. And this is why they have to demonize MAGA, people who believe in making America great. The reason why they have to demonize Donald Trump, why they have to demonize Republicans and anyone else who will go by the facts and not emotions, because they lose when people actually have to pay attention. That's why they're trying to demonize Donald Trump for 8 years. That's why they've been trying to get somebody to shoot at him, and why they celebrate when people do try to shoot at him, or they try to have these bomb threats, and you see the left cheering that, because it means they're that much closer to maintaining power. And that's something people really need to think about, because that's your choice, fact or feeling. And the people who win because of feelings, look at what they do when they have the power. I mean, just think about it. You don't have to like it, or maybe you do like it, but think about what is factually actually happening. Not how you feel about it, but what it is. And it's devastating, I think.
Okay. So Kamala Harris likes to point out that she is definitely not Joe Biden. Okay. So what I have up here that I'm sharing with you guys is from Kamala Harris's website through the Wayback Machine. This is on July 22nd, 2024. Protecting, strengthening our democracy. Our democracy and freedoms are at stake in this election. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are committing to strengthening our democracy and protecting our freedoms. And we can count on them to stand up to the extremists who undermine our Constitution and increase their own power. Joe and Kamala believe in the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. That is why they work for it every single day. Okay? This is from her page on the issues.
The new revamped page. Yeah. Amazing what $500 million will buy you.
Okay. A good majority of what is in this is taken from what I just showed you.
Again, almost everything, every issue there has one sentence on policy, and it has 3 paragraphs on feel good about Kamala. Feel good about Kamala. One sentence on policy. Feel good about Kamala. That's what that is. You can literally look it over. Oh, or as in the second paragraph here, you see, or hate Donald Trump. It's right in front of you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
This tax cuts for middle-class families. Harris and Walz believe that working families deserve a break. That's not about a policy. That means nothing. That's fluff. That's why under their plan, you haven't told us what the plan is, 100 million working and middle-class Americans will get a tax cut. You haven't told us what the plan is, so how do I know how many people it will apply to? That's ridiculous. You're giving me the end, the result, before you told me what the policy is.
Right.
The next sentence there. They will do this by restoring 2 tax cuts designed to help the middle class and working Americans. The child tax credit, which is one time, it is only good for 1 year, the first year of the life of that child. That's not a big deal. They're going to increase it to $6,000. So, okay, you're going to spend more money that we don't have, and only families with a newborn the first year get to have that. Your kid turns 2, your kid turns 5, your kid turns 15. You don't get this tax credit. So how is it helping 100 million families? I don't know. And the other one was the earned income tax credit, which again, she's making this money. Where is this money that she's printing? Where is it coming from? We don't know.
Nope.
So, but that is the one sentence. That is the sentence of the policy. We're going to give you more money. She's going to throw money at the problem of the economy. Okay. Next sentence. They'll spend I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say we're after 9 o'clock. We're after the 2-hour mark.
Oh, I
Already.
missed that. All right.
Before I'm going to cut out, but as you're talking about, that sentence and this sentence and that sentence, I'm going to show the viewers exactly the only sentence they need to worry about right now. And I'm going to do that right with this. Okay, hold on. Let me close this one. I'll do that with this. This is Kamala Harris's slogan.
Yeah.
We are not going back. Right? Well, there's another slogan that you guys should see. And that's this one. We're not going back. You see who this one is by?
Oh, that's funny. I didn't know that one.
Yeah, the Communist Party USA and Kamala Harris are using the exact same slogan. And the only difference is the Communist Party USA has been using this slogan, we're not going back, forward together, for at least the last 12 years. At least the last 12 years. Now, I want you to there is a stark resemblance because if you look at the other literature that Kamala Harris has out there, it's forward together. That's the second half. They don't put them together on the same banner. They'll turn around and go, we're not going back. And on another banner, forward together. We're not. The only difference is the communists actually put it together on one page. All right, so that's the only distinction you could draw. But I want you to think about every time she talks about her modest upbringing, her middle class upbringing, with her mother had to save money for them to buy a house, and then everybody, when they bought the house, they lived in a really nice neighborhood where everybody worried about their lawn.
Yeah.
All right. Her mother is the Indian in her nationality, right? Her mother is from India.
Yeah.
Her father is Jamaican.
Yeah.
Okay. Of Irish descent. That's beside the point. Did you ever notice that every time she's talking about her modest upbringing, she's always regaling tales about her Indian mother? Never, ever does she ever speak about her Jamaican father, who happened to write a book detailing and celebrating Marxism.
Yeah, that's why.
All right, so isn't it just funny how she'll espouse her African American heritage, but never speak about her African American father?
He's not African American
because he's not African American. While completely ignoring her Indian heritage, but always talking about her Indian mother. Okay, the woman is smoke and mirrors. Okay, and I'm gonna leave you guys with this before I'm gonna say, you guys be safe, shoot straight. I love you guys. Give me a prayer because I'm heading to New York this weekend.
Oh, cool.
My nephew's getting married. So I got to travel 600 miles up there to go, hey, here's an envelope, and I got to go do that. Just remember in Kamala Harris's political career, and as far as this election goes, this election isn't the only thing she's going to blow. All right, guys. See you next week.
All right.
See ya.
Yeah. I didn't realize it's after 9 already. It goes by so fast.
It does. And the thing is, we can continue on with this for hours on end.
I often do.
The truth is, okay, we we know who we're going to vote for. And everybody should vote for the person that they think will do the best job. Not whether it's not a popularity contest.
Shouldn't be.
Okay, folks, the future of our nation is at stake with every election. Not just this election, every election. The future of our country is at stake. Now, given that, forget about whether they have a R or a D behind their name. Forget about all the other rhetoric. Look at how they are going to address the issues that face this country. Plain and simple. That's what we should be looking at. It shouldn't matter if we got a D or an R as how we're registered, or an I. Okay, that shouldn't matter. What should matter in this election and in every election is whether or not the issues, the position on the issues that a candidate has, do they align with how you think they should align? Okay, if they don't, then that is not the candidate for you. Plain and simple. Do you believe that Harris is going to be able to keep inflation down? Do you believe that Harris is going to be able to grow the economy? Personally, no, I don't think she can. Okay, I do believe Donald Trump can. Given the track records of both candidates, Harris has already proven that they can't keep inflation under control. Harris has already proven that prices will rise because we're living through that right now. Under Trump, until COVID, our economy was the strongest it's been in a good long time. Inflation was lower than 2%. We had record employment. We had record low unemployment. We had record employment for minorities. Okay, that was all under the Trump administration until state governors started shutting down their states. Everybody blames Trump for the shutdown. It was not Trump. Every state in the union that shut down was shut down either by the state legislature or by the governor of the state. There is only one state that stayed open for business, and that is South Dakota. Okay, everybody tries to blame Trump for what happened to the economy. No, it was not Trump. It was the states that ruined our economy under COVID.
True.
Okay, it was not Trump. Trump did not tell anybody to shut down. Trump didn't tell anybody to wear masks. Trump didn't tell anybody that they had to get a shot. Okay, now remember that when it comes time for the election. Okay, and you folks may believe that that should be the authority of the federal government, but that's not what our Constitution says. And mind you, this week, our Constitution has been in effect for 237 years. It hasn't been adhered to, but it has been in effect. The Constitution is what gives legitimacy to the federal government. Without it, the federal government would not exist. And detailed within that document is the authority that the federal government is supposed to have. through the years, they have expanded upon it and expanded upon it to where the authority that the federal government has today is in no way representative for the authority that was defined under the Constitution. Project 2025, everybody's railing about it. Okay. If you actually read it and compare it to what the Constitution says, Project 2025 is a stepping stone towards restoring our government back to its constitutional foundation. That's why everybody's scared of Project 2025. That's why everybody's demonizing Project 2025. They don't want to be held accountable to the Constitution of the United States. When you go to the polls come November, keep that in mind also. Okay, everybody, we are here every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Please help us out, get the word out. Like, share, help us get this word out. Okay? We can't do this alone. We need your help. You can find us at Liberty First Foundation at the Liberty First Foundation's website at l1f.us. Okay, that website again is l1f.us. There you can become a member. You can help us get the word out, help us proceed forward with our mission of restoring the constitutional foundation of this country. Okay, because ultimately, if we want to bring this country back together, we have to get back to our constitutional roots. That is the only means, the only way that we can. Otherwise, we are going to continue down this division of identity politics, of left versus right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? The Constitution tells our government the authority it has. And without it, we are lost. We'll see you all next week, Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you, everybody.